stop what you're doing. Did you know that stress is good for you? Hello, action takers. Welcome to the IDKWTF I Was Doing podcast, where we are on a mission to help you create income from your interests by being with you during those moments of uncertainty. I'm your host, David B., and alongside me is the brilliant Teresa Merrick, and we are here as your friends and teammates. In today's episode, we're tackling a topic that's crucial for anyone looking to maintain a healthy balance in their life, and that topic is managing stress. Teresa and I have been doing this for decades between us, and we intimately know the struggles that come with chasing your dreams. When everything gets busy or hectic, it's easy to get overwhelmed and lose sight of what truly matters, but fear not. That's what we are here for. So, if you've struggled with managing stress while pursuing your passions, this is the episode for you. We'll be discussing the surprising benefits of acute stress, also how to recognize that feeling of bad chronic stress, and going over some very specific grounding exercises that you can use to instantly take you from a frustrated and stressed out state and get you back to a moment of clarity. Plus, you can do all of them with ninja-like covertness absolutely anywhere. Be sure to listen to the full episode because we're going to dive deep into practical strategies and techniques that you can implement right now to transform your life and boost your success. So remember, we are all in this together, and Teresa and I are here to support you every step of the way. So if this is the kind of thing that sends a little shiver down your spine, hit that subscribe button and let's get started on this journey to manage stress while we're creating that meaningful income straight from our interests. Have you ever started something new and didn't finish it?
You were excited. You invested time and money.
You got stuck.
I'm Teresa Merrick.
And I'm David B.
And this is the podcast with two ADHD entrepreneurs, and we've been there.
And worked with hundreds of people in the exact same place.
The IDKWTF I Was Doing podcast will take you away from feelings of frustration and overwhelm.
And lead you to the clarity you need to take action and get shit done.
Listen today because it's important to admit that no one really knows
what the fuck they're doing.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the IDKWTF I Was Doing podcast. I am David B.
And I'm Teresa Merrick.
And we are back once again going through our series on I don't know what I'm doing and it's okay. So we've covered a wide range of topics, from really just admitting that we don't know what's going on.
We have talked about stress. We have talked about routines. We have talked about how everybody goes through tough times and we all deal with them a little bit differently. So we've got to have a strategy with how to deal with those tough spots. So we've talked about some really good topics this season.
Yeah. And it's been really good. So I particularly like the series. I recommend go back to episode 67. You can watch them in order from there, or just pick any of the ones that really jump out to you. But the key to really getting through that discomfort and really getting to that place that you want to go is having a plan, taking active steps, and just getting these things done. And we are very excited to be your partners in that. So what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to talk about stress. Did you know that acute stress is actually good for you?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Acute stress is good for you. Tell me about that.
It is. Well, so a healthy peak and recovery state of stress can actually help keep our cells young and vibrant and vital and working. The problem actually is that most of us don't have issues with a peak stress. It's that we have chronic stress. Mm-hmm. So peak and recovery, think about a muscle. If you want to build a muscle, you put it under stress. You break it down and then it builds back up and you have a bigger muscle. So that's why stress is good for us, those types of stress for our body. So if we have a moment where we're being chased by the lion, but then we run it off, our body hits that peak level and then it goes back to normal and it's stable. So that's good. Keeps us fresh. But most of us are dealing with day-to-day stressors. And I even looked up the difference between entrepreneurs and just an average employee and their stress levels, and they're actually really close to the same. Most of the statistics that I found online were saying about 45% of entrepreneurs have stress, where it's only about 3% higher than that of an average employee at any business. So
Interesting.
yeah, I thought it was interesting too. I figured entrepreneurs might be more stressed out.
I think it's just the problem is that everyone is very stressed all of the time. And that's just kind of built into society. So whether it's your normal job which is almost like designed to be stressful every day. But I mean, entrepreneurship is stressful in just a different way. It's just we're all stressed all the time.
Societal stress is a huge thing. And I think none of us think about that really, but it's also sort of like a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor to be busy and stressed out. And if you're not, then what are you even doing with your life?
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting because I don't know if you're familiar with Ariana Huffington, who created the Huffington Post.
Okay.
So she actually dealt with a huge burnout issue and collapsed from exhaustion back in 2007. And it caused her to create a lifestyle shift where and now she talks about mindfulness in the workplace. She's written books about it. And in an interview with Forbes, she actually said, I realized that my definition of success was incomplete. I was running on fumes and I needed to change my relationship with my work and my life. I started prioritizing my well-being by getting more sleep, practicing mindfulness, and disconnecting from technology. These changes helped me feel more energized and focused, and I was able to achieve more by doing less. And I really like that because I was able to achieve more by doing less, because less is more. It really is a thing, guys. Like you need to schedule that time or have that downtime because we're going to be stressed. We absolutely are. It's the nature of life. It's what actually keeps us going, but we don't want to be under that chronic stress. So
You mentioned real quick so she collapsed from burnout. So what's the big difference between stress and burnout?
Yeah, great question. So stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So essentially, being chased by a lion, like that's a very demanding, adverse circumstance, right? It's stressful. But burnout is actually where you have that physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or like prolonged stress. So that's the main difference. Because a lot of people will say they're burnt out. They're probably right. Because if you're burnt out from going to work day in and day out or dealing with these same things all the time, and it never gets better and you never get rid of that stress, then you probably are burnt out. And it really is physically not good for you. So, David, I would ask you notice in your body, like how do you feel when you're feeling stressed out or burnt out? What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, definitely when I'm getting stressed, I feel it like in my chest, in like my shoulders specifically. And I'll just feel like that sense of dis-ease. And I don't always know where it's coming from. And so it's, when you feel that like anxiousness and that anxiety and it's like, oh, yeah. And so it's
Well, do you
unpleasant.
are you tense? Does it feel like something's sitting on your chest? Like, how does it actually feel for
Yeah,
you?
it feels like pressure that just doesn't go away. And then that leads to anxiety. And then it's just like, I need to go do something. So I'll feel restless. And then I don't always know where it's coming from.
Oh yeah, totally. I've actually spent years learning to loosen up my neck muscles because I hold tension and I'll tighten up my shoulders. I noticed that my middle child does that, and I've been working with her and being like, hey, relax your shoulders.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a thing. Anxiety and stress can cause that like tension in there.
Yeah. What about you? Like how do you notice when you're stressed?
Yeah. Usually I'm extra like mood swingy. I can be really sensitive and emotional, and I'm like that kind of anyway. But usually I will notice and be like, wow, like I was in a really great mood and now I'm in a really bad mood. And then I'm feeling great again. And it's like this internal struggle. So that can be one thing that it's to me that something is off. Because sure, you can be annoyed. You can be having a good day and be like frustrated or even angry at something and then go back to having a good day. But it's like the full swing where suddenly it feels like the whole day's been bad. And it's like, it's not quite right.
Everything is terrible.
Yeah. Everything is terrible. And suddenly there's a big gray cloud overhead. And the world didn't shift like that. But usually I find myself, it's like a struggle. I'll be trying to be happy. I'll be trying to be in a good mood and I'm just like gloomy. And usually when that happens, I check out and let's just go snuggle in on the couch and watch a movie marathon or a Netflix series or something. And then instead of watching one while I eat lunch, there I am like 6 hours later. And I'm like, oh, I'm definitely avoiding everything.
That's something I was going to say too, is I definitely get into avoidant behavior and I'll play Minecraft just forever, or I'll be scrolling on TikTok. Those are probably the two things I escape into. And
Totally. Because and it's different. It's different than when you accidentally get on TikTok and you're there for 3 hours, because that happens. And that doesn't mean you're hiding out, because TikTok is TikTok.
very
But
stimulating.
yeah, there's a difference. It's like when you notice that you're like, I'm going to actively go do this. I'm not going to pay attention to it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Some other ways that you might notice that is when you get like intrusive thoughts. So things show up, they pop up in your head, worries, you're obsessing over certain things that aren't typical, or you can't let go of certain situations that maybe are small enough that you should be letting go of them. And you maybe logically know that you're like, I don't know why I'm like holding on to this so tightly. Actually getting sick and staying sick can be an indication of stress and burnout, because your physical body does not function the way that it's supposed to. So back in episodes 43 and 44, they're kind of long, but I really dive into what it is like being low level sick all the time and how it affects your body being stressed out all the time. So if you want more details on that, go listen. But I mean, that can even be slow or non-healing injuries. If you strain a muscle and you just can't seem to like get it better, like your body won't heal as fast. Those kinds of things can be true signs of chronic stress or burnout. But usually there are those telltale signs like David and I just talked about, when it's more of an initial, I'm noticing this really having an effect on me. So there's lots of different ways that you can manage that. And one way though is to just bring yourself back to the present, get grounded when you're feeling like a little overwhelmed, a little stressed, you're kind of stuck. So I think we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about grounding exercises, and I'll walk you through one.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right. Have you ever started something new that you were really excited about and invested time or money into, but after doing it for a while, you reach a point and you just feel like, I have no idea what the F I'm doing?
There's that bubbling up of frustration because you're not quite as good as you thought you'd be, or it's nowhere near as easy as you expected. Then suddenly, a wave of guilt comes at the same time, and you don't really want to or feel like you can express this to anyone.
Having a dream you want to accomplish can be very sad and isolating. It's lonely because visionaries tend to see the world the way that it could be, instead of settling for the way the world currently is, like most people do.
We believe this so deeply that we wrote a book with the exact 4 steps to help.
This guide is designed to take you out of that feeling of frustration and overwhelm and lead you into the calmness and clarity that you need to reach the life that you know in your heart you're destined to have.
If you've started a project or a goal but have stopped, gotten stuck, or are starting to feel burned out, this is 100% the book for you.
Go to IDKWTFpodcast.com today and download your digital copy with the coupon code ACTION to get it on us, because we want to join you and be your supportive friends and partners throughout your journey.
It's only free for a limited time if you use the code ACTION by going to our website, IDKWTFpodcast.com.
Check it out today and let's get unstuck together.
All right, and welcome back. So before the break, we covered really what stress is, and we talked about that some stress is good for us, but it's that chronic stress that leads to burnout, which can lead to all kinds of just destructive things in our body. And so now Teresa is going to walk us through a pretty exciting, some exercises and stuff, some practical things we can actually do when we're feeling that stress level, instead of jumping onto video games or binging TV or engaging in excess drinking. There's stuff like that.
Or excessive snacking. I've never been a drinker, but man, when I want to just eat junk food.
Yeah.
I didn't say that as one of the things, but it's when you're binging on something that's maybe not healthy for you, whatever might be, that's probably also an indicator that something's not quite feeling good. But yeah, so grounding exercises can be super helpful, especially if you're feeling like overwhelmed or stuck and you're getting stuck in the what ifs, either the past and like getting all murky in the past, which we do sometimes, or going to the future and being like, and freezing a little bit. So one of my favorite grounding exercises is called like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses exercise. And it's something that I've used a lot with my daughter. And it's really, really simple. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you just take a second and you start with your 5 senses. So you start with 5 things you can see and you look around and you go, I can see the desk. I can see my water bottle. I can see my laptop and a piece of paper and a notebook.
So you're counting these things on your fingers?
You're counting, you can count them on your fingers. You can just look around. Okay, 1, 2, you can label them as you go, whatever works. Then 4 things you can touch. So it can be your own hair. It can be your own skin. It can be your clothing. Like I can touch it. I can touch this desk. I can touch my phone. I can touch. So you count 4 things that you can touch. Maybe it's your dog or your cat snuggling next to you, which is always good too for stress. Snuggle with your animals. Then it's 3 things you can hear. So when you stop, and even if it's really quiet, if you stop and actually listen, you will be able to hear things. One of them might even be the sound of your own breathing or your own heartbeat.
Like the traffic outside, or maybe the AC or heater that's coming on. The pipes.
Right. A dog barking somewhere, someone talking in an office next to you. You'll be able to hear something, even if it's faint. 2 things you can smell. Sometimes, generally, yeah, you can, that is something you taste it. For those of you watching, David's like lifting up and checking his pits, right? But really, actually, you can smell like your own skin or your own clothes if you just pick it up. And normally there is some smell in your own belonging, not necessarily a bad thing. Or if you have a chapstick or a candle or something handy that smells like something. Doesn't even have to be anything in particular. Sometimes you might have a chapstick that doesn't really smell like strawberry or something, but it just smells like chapstick. And then the final thing is something you can taste. And so, most of the time, even if it's just water, take a sip of your water. Like water maybe has no flavor, but water tastes like water. If you close your eyes and you sip out of a cup of water, you'll know it's water.
Some water has some taste to it.
That's true. I prefer the flavorless water. But a thing handy that you can have a taste of. Most of us have a mint or a little piece of candy or a drink near, but we can taste if we don't have a taste in our mouth already.
But don't binge eat. That's
no binge eating. No. Yeah. That's why have the mint or something.
It's for my stress.
No.
Something I can taste.
No, it's just to help bring you back to the present moment. If you get caught up being stressed out about things in your life, because most of the time, the things that we're stressed out about are things we can control, or we have control over how we perceive them. So that's a huge, huge thing. Actually, it's something that Jen Sincero says in her book, You Are a Badass. She talks about that in part of her book. And I love that she's like, yeah, it's our perception. And she's not the only one that said that by far. There are so many people, so many books that really talk about your perception. But we all do get in that headspace where we're thinking and overthinking. Overthinkers Anonymous. I belong to that club.
Yeah. Can we recap this one real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's 5 things you can see.
4 things you can touch. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. Okay. So honestly, don't get caught up if you accidentally do 5 things you can touch and 4 things you can see. It does not matter. It is literally the same thing. Actually, my sister-in-law is a therapist at an elementary school. So she works with kids and she does a lot of these techniques. She's actually told me you can do this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and do it with like colors around the room. Look for 5 green things, 4 blue things, etc. It doesn't actually really matter. It just brings you present to the room you're in and where you are right now. Mm-hmm. So that's the twist on it. But it also, just to remind you, it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, I can only smell one thing, but I just ate something and I'm drinking a soda now, so I can taste both of those things. I think the order it's in is just because, for simplicity, in any given moment, most of those things you can do, and smell and taste are probably the hardest things to do without going somewhere and doing something. If you're trying to taste 5 things, it's a little bit harder to do than see 5 things.
Yeah, makes sense. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like it. What else? Do you have some other exercises for us?
Yeah, there's just a couple other examples that I have that I like to use. There are lots and lots of grounding exercises. So if you're looking for one, you can consult the Google. I promise you'll find a ton. But another one that's really, really simple that you can use, and that's the other thing I like about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can use it without anybody knowing you're doing it. So if you're freaking out in an office meeting, you can touch your throat, you can touch your hair, you can touch the desk, like you can even touch things without anybody noticing what you're doing, right? Maybe if you do like David did and you're smelling your pits, then they might notice that. But another thing that you can do without anybody knowing what you're doing is box breathing. So box breathing, if you've never heard of it, it's actually very relaxing too, just in general. You breathe in for a count of 4 and you hold it for a count of 4. You breathe out for a count of 4 and you hold it for a count of 4 and you repeat.
Okay.
And it just helps.
Hold it, breathe out, hold it.
Yep. And there's some variations on this type of breathing. So look it up. You can, if the 4, 4, 4, 4 doesn't work for you, but it's actually, and it doesn't matter how fast you count. If you count a little faster, a little slower, don't get caught up on the details. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid with this stuff. So whatever pace you count at that works for you works.
Mm-hmm.
So the box breathing. And then one of the other ones I really like, progressive muscle tensing and relaxing. So actually, I use this technique a lot to relax myself at bedtime if I'm tense at all, but you can use it anytime. And it's just picking a muscle group and tightening those muscles for 10 seconds and then releasing them. So like you tighten like your feet and then release them. Then you tighten your legs and you release it. And then you tighten your abdomen and release it. And you go through that and it just brings you present in your body. It helps relax any tensions you do have. So if you are holding or scrunching yourself up, then you're intentionally doing it. Then it's easier to relax when you're like, oh, wow, I was really sitting all like scrunched up and tensed out. Now I'm like, oh, I feel better. I feel present. I'm here. And you feel your whole body.
I have some guided meditations that take me through that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can talk about other stuff. And so it really relaxes you quick. Right?
Yeah, it's a really cool mindful practice that actually I think for meditation, which we didn't schedule time to talk about today, but definitely it's a meditative process. It can be. And like I said, sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep and I can't, and I'm just like, okay, I really need to like relax. Nothing I'm doing is working, tense things up. Relax them, like it actually prepares your body to just be restful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that one a lot. But anyway, these grounding exercises are just supposed to be helpful when you're stressed out, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling out of control. And it just brings you right here and now so that you're right with yourself. Because you have to start out that way. If you're off in stress land worrying about the future or the what ifs or anything, really, you can't move from that point.
I really like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because it's so like practical and immediate. Because one thing that I used to do, especially if I was with a partner and we were like fighting about something, or she'd be like really stressed out and I'd be like, okay, well, what's something that you're grateful for? Like getting into a state of gratitude is a really good way to get out of the stress state. But it's so hard for people to think of something that they're grateful for when they're really wrapped up in that moment. And it never really worked out the way that I had hoped. What's something you're grateful for? Nothing. Shut up.
Because in theory, yes, gratitude like puts you on such a higher level, like it's a higher state of mentality. You and I both know that because that's something we've practiced and used. And absolutely, when you are in that state and you're like, no, I'm hiding out and watching Netflix. I'm grateful that I have Netflix and I'm watching it right now. Peace out.
Right.
Like it doesn't necessarily change your mentality, but if you can do a grounding exercise and then say, what am I grateful for? It actually, you're present at that point. So,
well, I think those are wonderful, practical things that we can do and implement immediately.
And that's the other thing I love too, is really nobody has to know you're doing this. So if you're in the middle of a busy room, busy place, whatever, maybe don't try and relax yourself to a point of sleep while you're driving. Might be a bad idea. But most of the time, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can use these techniques and nobody will know you're using them. They're for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, that's great. So we covered stress and how to get out of that stress state previously we even covered how to like set up new routines and get our schedules better, is what we talked about last time.
Mhm.
So now that we're aware of that we need help, we've implemented some things to make things better in our life. We've now taken some active steps to reduce the stress in our life. I think the next things we're going to be talking about is like how to get more help and support. Because now, once we're in a better state of just feeling good, now it's really time to get some supportive people in our world. I
Absolutely.
think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yes, creating a supportive community is going to benefit everybody. Everybody needs that like person and people in their corner to celebrate their successes and to support them when they're maybe down and out and maybe go, hey, what grounding exercise are you going to use to chill out right now? What are 5 things you can see right now, dear?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So great. Well, I am looking forward to our next episode, and I hope you are too. We can't wait to hear what you guys think. And I would love it if you'd share your favorite de-stressing techniques when you notice yourself in that moment.
Ooh, yeah.
So please do comment, message us, share it in our Facebook group. We want to hear what you do.
Yeah, and you can find our Facebook group if you go to IDKWTF.com. It's just, we've got a community tab on there and you can jump right into our private community. So we
Can't
will
wait to
be
see you there.
Excited to have you there.
Have a great day, guys.
All right, take care and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider liking, subscribing, and or reviewing us on wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Also, if there's someone you know who clearly doesn't know what the fuck they're doing and would benefit from this topic, please hit that share button and send them this episode.
Let's normalize the feeling of uncertainty.
Asking for help and admitting that we don't know
What the fuck we're doing either.